before going to the dealership to get the car.
Yeah. So, then she takes, but she'll work with the car dealership and get all that fixed. Like, we don't have to deal with that because, that's everybody's favorite thing to do is to go talk to a car dealer on any day of the week. They're like right above.
I like it.
They're right above. Well, actually, police are right above car salesmen in the order of people that you would want to look forward to talking to. I'm serious. So, you don't want to sound like a cop. You don't want to sound like a car salesman wherever you go, whatever you say. So, anyways.
Put your hands behind your back.
Put your hands behind your back and sign this.
Buy this car.
Wait.
I was going to say, they pretty much do the same thing.
Yeah.
Hand over your keys and give me your driver's license.
Anyways, welcome to the NerdBrand podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Jason. This is Mitch, and that's John. And today we're talking about mastering authentic marketing. So basically, it's trying to kind of ties into what I just said. It doesn't it? It avoids the BS meter, as I've written here on the notes, because your consumers, they can smell that. So don't do it.
Mitch is checking his phone. Right at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah,
Come on.
I'm sorry. It started buzzing.
Mitch.
I never.
Airplane mode.
Number one,
you're fired.
I never.
I'm
Again?
just kidding.
I never get calls during this time.
Oh, well.
Nobody calls, they text. That's why I know if it's legitimate generally, is that if somebody's actually calling me, it's like nobody ever calls me. Nobody wants to talk to me.
I'll start calling you. What's with the air quotes?
Would you?
I don't know.
Would you like for me to text you and call you more often? Would that make you feel better?
No.
If we were
text is fine.
If we were in Bangkok and I did that after hours, I would go to jail because I think they actually made a law where the boss can't do like call or text employees after work hours, or they can go to jail.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that's what Reddit says. So take that with a grain of salt that it come from. Anyway, back onto the topic. Authentic marketing actually requires you, the marketer, to be a fan of the service or product you are marketing. Without that connection, marketing efforts can be inauthentic, in which the audience could pick up and ignore the brand identity entirely. So, what do you guys think?
That's the whole episode.
There we go.
All right. Well, good.
Thanks, and come back next time.
Made Andrew's job easy.
Well, I've said this over and over and over again. Like many things, it's people have so many ways now to find out how authentic or how real you are. They can Google you, they can look at you on social media, and if they're not getting the same vibe from all those sources versus the interaction they may actually have with your brand in a transaction, they're going to find out very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Or if what you're saying about your brand and your marketing doesn't match up with the experience they're having with your brand, they're going to know pretty fast these days. People find out things instantaneously. Google, social media, whatever the case.
Yeah. I mean, you're trying to attract trust from an audience. I mean, that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to build trust. Or is it rapport? I don't know how to say it right.
Rapport?
I'll tell you guys this.
Rapport.
If one of you were taken hostage and they were like, if you don't spell this word correctly, your friend is going to die. And if that word is restaurant, it's been really nice knowing you two.
Yeah.
Because I would be like, RESTRANTE. I don't.
Where exactly does yeah, where exactly does the AU fall in the spelling? I always, is it here or is it here?
It's the left side. For sure.
The left side. I think you're right.
Yeah. I think, for authenticity, because everybody says it, this has been the thing, be authentic.
Yeah.
It's been the marketing thing for, I don't know, probably forever in some form or fashion, but that phrase in itself, since I feel like it's about 6 or 7 years, when social came about, people were like, well, you got to really be authentic on social. You got to be real.
Right.
What does that mean?
Well, I think it means don't wake up in the morning and then, try to present yourself like, this is how I look when I wake up in the morning, because that's sort of become like a movie trope with certain films that deal with, situational dramas or whatever. It's like, yeah, everybody like on Instagram is not really how they look.
No.
Yeah, I know. Shocker.
I'm stunned.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, I think probably this whole,
I am.
We know.
We know. I mean, that's probably the advent of all this. It started the drumbeat really started with social media, because that was the door to showing your authentic you.
Well, it also became the door to being inauthentic.
Exactly.
You set up this separate life or whatever. Or as a brand, you try to set up this separate identity in a sense. You try to be what you think the public wants to see.
Perception,
But
is
you have to
reality.
actually be that, and people can pick up on it pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, we have met, all three of us have met and worked with or for people that we've seen that are not authentic, and sometimes in senses and ways that are just incredibly demonstrative. Is that a word to use for that?
I
If you want to.
I mean,
rapport.
I'm the senior member here, so I've got a longer history to deal with, but I can tell you that's just the nature, unfortunately, in the advertising and marketing universe. You're going to get a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's because the whole point of advertising marketing is to project an image.
Right.
Anyway, so
It's all
and sell you
right.
on why you should do. Yeah. So obviously, but sometimes I just think that, you have to be careful, like with your brand anyways, because like we've talked about on the last show with Mary Reed was, the people in your company are going to talk about the brand. They're going to talk about the business. They're going to be bought into the mission and everything. And so when that happens, it's very organic to talk about it, discuss it, and those personalities. Like there's no inauthenticness, whatever, to it, right? Because you actually are bought in and believe it. And like they're not going to try to conform and, like, oh yeah, I'm totally bought into this thing. And then in the back of their mind, they're like, God, I'd just rather be someplace else.
Oh, well, I mean, how many of us, who've worked for like a larger corporation, and part of your orientation, whether it's said, literally or otherwise, there's always that kind of they're trying to get you to buy into the brand at the beginning, and we've preached this, John. We've talked about this. Being an authentic brand starts internally. Mm-hmm. You have to actually believe and live and perform the way your brand says it does. And you have to have that same attitude internally. Otherwise, when you try to project it, you're projecting something that isn't real. And people, again, back to what I said earlier, there's ways they can pick up very quickly on whether or not that's the case.
Yeah. So let's talk about the one person that's in the show notes that kind of like we've seen do this really well and actually coined a phrase called fast-vertising. Okay. Many have latched onto this and they've started defining it. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Okay, look, Ryan Reynolds actually came up with this. So, hey, everybody, let's cut and ask Ryan Reynolds what he has to say. And then at that point in this podcast, you're probably going like, oh, cool, you got Ryan Reynolds on the show. No, we don't. Sorry. My bad.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. Anyways, it involves treating real-time cultural moments as a springboard to build their own brand buzz. Rapid deployment of your ads is related to this method, which can create authentic moments. But be careful because not everything is humorous or timely. Essentially, read the room.
Right. And which goes to know your audience. It's related. Knowing your audience isn't just about knowing what they like and what they're about, but where they are in that moment in time, what's happening around them.
Yeah, because that whole Peloton thing, they turned that around really quick. And if they had done that like 6 months after that had happened, everybody would have
nobody would have made the connection. And, a big part of what pushed that along was the industry folks were like, holy crap, how did you all do that so quickly?
Right.
And it was spot on. How did you get that creative, that quickly produce, and distribute? That's the other half of it.
Yeah, I found an interview that he did, and he said that it was it was in about 72 hours from concept to production to complete to distribution. 72 hours.
When you have a good idea,
Yeah.
Well, sit on it.
Well, and you have the resources to get the wheels in motion. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
When you can pick up the phone and start calling people saying, okay, we have to do this now. I mean, you have to have resources, both human and otherwise, at the ready to be able to pull something like that off. And not everybody can do that.
Well, just think about how long it takes us to get a bar to do a photo shoot or a video shoot, and they, he could call anybody and be like, hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds and I'd like to shoot a commercial in your bar.
Oh yeah, anybody would drop for that. They'd be like, yeah, come on in. Like, well, isn't it prime time when you get it? Doesn't matter. It's Ryan Reynolds. Right. But yeah, there's a little bit of that.
That said, what do you guys think about the fact that this kind of throwing the term around this digital universe we live in, and having pretty ready access to resources to produce content, hasn't that made it easier for people to turn on a dime in a way that maybe they couldn't in the past, and create something and get it out quickly, because you've got digital cameras, because you've got computers, because you've got iPads and iPhones, etc.
Mhm.
You can literally turn around and produce content in a matter of hours rather than
By
days
yourself.
and weeks by yourself. Right.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is with the Peloton and Ryan Reynolds, his branding agency, believe it or not, is built around him, you know?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
the creative director.
Yeah, he's the creative director of it, for those that don't know. And, it literally, one of the mission statements is that this brand agency serves Ryan Reynolds' whims. That's kind of the tone of.
He has good instincts, though.
Yeah, that's the tone of the brand. That's it. So when you know the tone, when you know yourself, you can turn around things very quickly, because everybody kind of understands the direction we're going in, because, Ryan Reynolds doesn't sound like, Johnny Carson or whatever. It's like,
Who?
I know I really went way back there, didn't I?
I know who that is.
Yeah, I wasn't. I don't know when he left the Tonight Show, but I do remember when Jay Leno got it. But I'm not. I think I'm
90?
that. Yeah, I was in high school.
I was born.
It was 1990, I think.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan since I was a little boy.
Yeah. Anyways, I digress. You're not that person, so it's pretty easy to kind of like spit out something in 72 hours. But what you were saying, John, it's still, you got to get the location.
Well, yeah, it's all the logistics, and then actually filming something that's worthy. Your
Yeah.
idea may not come to life as you planned, and then again, distribution, getting it out there, getting it to YouTube, putting some money behind it. Maybe, I don't know how they did it, but starting to generate that buzz, which it helps if you're Ryan Reynolds, you got a Twitter following.
Mhm.
But
Now, there are
still,
some built-ins.
Yeah, you can't really distribute content if you don't have that many followers, or there's not many people listening or paying attention.
You better say something pretty catchy
Mhm.
to get that whole term,
Not that
to
he
get that
didn't work for it,
organic reach.
He worked for it, if you think about it. It just takes time.
Yeah,
when
he
he was 18 or 19, he was working like the graveyard shift at a grocery store, stocking shelves. So like he came from that to what he is now. It
Yeah.
took
If
25
he was
years.
still the Ryan Reynolds back in the day when he did the movie called Waiting, which if any of you have never seen that, oh my God, that'll give you an eye opener about that universe. Don't watch that. It's not kid friendly. Don't watch that. But he was, but if he was still that stage in his career as an actor, then no, of course not. He has evolved in his career and as a person like tremendously.
Yeah, but if you think about it, you've seen Waiting.
Mhm.
He's still essentially
Yeah, he still has that personality, that
has that-
sharp
has that-
humor.
yeah.
But, even though he's probably not wanting to be fond of the memories of it, but in Green Lantern is when he met his wife,
At least I guess something good came of it.
that was the only thing I think that he would probably say that did. But, he's kind of grown. Now he's retired from acting. At least it seems that way. I think he's that or sabbatical.
He's not having to jump on every offer that comes across the table. He's got that luxury. There's another actor that's also works in the advertising realm that serves as a creative director, who kind of is in that same completely different personality, but is in that same occupies that same space, and that is Matthew McConaughey.
Mm-hmm.
He's the creative director for.
All right.
Don't do it, Jason.
Well,
I know you hesitated.
Somebody-
you thought
somebody
about
was-
it.
I did.
Don't.
Somebody was
you
going to.
checked our. We made eye contact. Not okay.
Moving
But you
on.
didn't wave me off, so I was like, I'm doing it.
I knew something was coming. I didn't know what was coming, but something was coming out.
Anyway,
I was curious.
he was the creative director for Wild Turkey.
That sounds right.
For a campaign. And I don't know if he's the creative director or not, but he's the most visible face for Cadillac now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's another one of those guys who has probably, I'm not sure his instincts maybe are as good as Ryan Reynolds.
Well, I think that
He's not bad.
that whole
I've
campaign.
never met the guys.
Yeah.
so.
But if you watch if you look at their body of work, and I'm talking on the advertising type stuff.
Yeah.
For one thing, Reynolds is just prolific.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wireless company out of Canada he does work for. There's some kind of low carb cookie or something he's done work for. I've seen it on Facebook. I mean, he has a pretty broad repertoire.
Yeah, yeah, and he's being himself. I mean, that's the whole thing about authenticity. I mean, you could literally watch the movie Deadpool or the series, and I don't know if there's a third one coming or not, but I mean, you could watch it, and then you watch like what he does in that world, and you're like, yeah, that's the same guy.
Quirky, funny, very quick-witted,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. I mean, kind of as a side note, if you've seen any of the handful of more serious roles he's done, he can do it. I mean, he does serious stuff well.
Yeah, yeah. But the
the
advertising,
stuff
It's got the same tone.
It's similar.
That's kind of the point. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a brand.
yeah, and you remember the ads. I mean, I still remember the ads that he's done, and he's been putting his name and his agency behind, and I remember them. I mean, so there's that. The authenticity also creates that memorable, that.
Yeah.
I don't know what the word is. I'm just going to stop because I've
Well, it's just-
screwed up like 4 of them in this podcast.
It's interesting because you look at Mcconaughey and you look at Ryan Reynolds. Not that we'll make the whole podcast about those two, because I'm sure there's others.
Well, we have, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
we're talking about authentic marketing, so these are the two that kind of. There's probably many people listening or watching this that
relatable.
don't know that that's what these guys do. They just see them as their roles in the movies and think like, oh yeah, that's the guy that made does the all right, and that's the other guy that was Deadpool. That's probably
he
the
did it
limit.
again.
Yeah, that might be the limit. Yeah, but I didn't try to imitate.
I'm leaving.
Anyway, they probably just don't. You never know. They may not know that. Oh, I didn't know they were creative directors of these bands. Like when you mentioned the Cadillac thing, my mind did immediately go to not the commercials that he did, but it went to the Jim Carrey SNL where he's like pretending to roll a booger. They made fun of that. Like that was out. Like when those commercials came out, Jim Carrey was on SNL, and that came out like obviously Saturday night.
I don't remember. That.
I do. Oh, it's hilarious. It was as he was impersonating Matthew McConaughey in the commercials driving, and he was mentioning like how he was rolling a booger.
I didn't see that part, but I saw some of the other impersonations.
Yeah, I think the reason why Wild Turkey went to McConaughey and Cadillac for that reason is I think there's an authenticity about them as actors that comes through in their roles, that it's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with Ryan Reynolds. But again, I go back to it's just really interesting. Ryan Reynolds has really planted a flag in the marketing and advertising side of things. It's something he really has a heart for. And McConaughey is kind of like, I think I'll do this because it sounds fun. And it's authentic and the work is pretty good. But you can tell that Ryan Reynolds it's in his blood. He really enjoys it. He's not just doing it because he is looking for another revenue stream, which I'm sure if that helps.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
doesn't
it's an
really need
energy.
that. Yeah,
He's got an energy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, a good marketer, a good advertiser has a certain energy about them, typically.
Yep.
Well, he's an entrepreneur.
That too.
I mean, Aviation Gin. I mean, he sold that for what, 170 million something.
I didn't
Something
know he
like
sold
that.
it.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yeah,
he still does promotional work for it.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, as far as I think he kind of latched on the idea. He's like, wait a minute, if I want to play in these different areas, then I'll just be a branding agency and we'll just do that, and then I get to play there. And the other cool thing that they do is too, I mean, they do, like if you look at their website and what they do, I mean, they're in a market that I would love to be in, but they're editing movie trailers and they're involved with the studios in promotion of those movies. I would love to do that because I have a heart I love movies, obviously. So, I'd love to, do some movie trailers and stuff like that. I think that'd be fun.
In a world where Jason is producing movie trailers.
I'm leaving again.
I think you're jealous because we've got some like impersonation chops and we haven't heard.
I'm waiting for my opportunity.
You waiting for your opportunity? Okay. Yeah. I'm just kind of curious what you got in the library.
Me too. I'm trying to, it's
One day
it's
it's-
not something you plan.
Yeah.
One day it's going to explode and we're all going to go, what?
Yeah. All of a sudden we're going to be sitting here talking and all of a sudden we got Peter Griffin on the show. We're just like, wait, hold on.
That's probably not it.
That would be awesome.
That's probably not it.
Well, if it's SpongeBob, I'm leaving the show.
That I would say that's probably even less likely.
Squidward.
Maybe Patrick.
I'm getting a starfish vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Play around.
Man. Yeah.
It is interesting.
Go back on track. It is interesting.
I'm trying to steer us back. We've kind of moved off the side of the road. It is interesting. I mean, again, going back to the decades and decades and decades of experiences in this business, there is a performance.
You make yourself sound so ancient.
Because sometimes I feel it. There's a performance angle in this business, even if you're not in front of the camera, but being kind of behind it, whether it's producing video, advertising, print, digital, whatever the case, there is a performance vibe to it. You're creating and you're crafting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's probably another reason why these people like Reynolds and Mcconaughey gravitate toward it, because it's another way to perform.
Yeah.
It's another way to exercise those skills and that desire, but in a different
I don't want anybody thinking
way.
that fast-vertising means like spur of the moment and unplanned, not strategic, just pick up the phone and turn the camera on, start hitting record, and then tell the person on the other side, do a thing.
Yeah, that's haphazard.
Yeah, no, that's not what they do. Obviously, that 72 hours and everything they obviously that was something that I think there was some interviews a while back when the first Deadpool movie came out, and he was doing like, what Robert Downey Jr. would call selling soap, and you do the talk show circuit interviews and all that. Ryan Reynolds was doing the same thing, and he was talking to them, and he was texting the marketing guys billboard ideas, and they just started talking emojis for Deadpool, and it was just the skull, the poo, and the L, and that was the entire billboard. And he said, the marketing guys were like, we're going to do that, and he said, you don't have the guts, and then sure enough, they did. And it's like, I think that's how that works. He has that team on the back supporting him, and they're like, yeah, there's that just synergy, as they say, and I think that's why. But that's still not haphazard. That's still staying in line with the personality that they're trying to, project and put out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is. I
mean, and it goes back to authenticity again, and that was a real moment that somebody had that had a real, unique, strong creative idea and the ability to take advantage of it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some industries, I think, some products, some services where that's easier to do because the out of bounds lines are so wide. You've got so much room to play.
Yeah.
It's harder, I think, if you have a product that's more narrow, that maybe, and maybe I'm wrong, but as I'm saying this, I'm second guessing myself. But still, if it's a product or service that has a very narrow focus, maybe it's harder.
I don't see feminine
it's harder to think that open. You know what I mean? To have that big of a playground to play in.
Well, I mean, there's budget considerations. There's timing and all that stuff. There's so much luck involved with it too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have the greatest idea in the world, but
Mm-hmm.
if you don't distribute it at the right time, even if you distribute it the right way, if you don't distribute it at the right time, like if something major had happened the day that he released that on Twitter, because Twitter is really where that whole conversation around the Peloton and that turnaround, generated conversation, and then it hit the press and all that stuff. But if something major had taken the headlines that day, your great idea, it's a different story.
It's gone.
Yeah, well, it's happened.
It gets buried.
It happened in nerd culture years ago. I remember when DC Comics killed Superman. There was literally nothing going on in the news that day, and that had hit everywhere because they were like, who's going to war with so-and-so? No, nobody. Everybody seems to be fine today. And then all of a sudden somebody came in and said, I just read DC Comics. They killed Superman. Like, what? And then they ran with that, and that literally became a thing. And, so yeah, like what you said, a lot of it has timing and luck, and there is those elements that sometimes when you do something that, you have to, there's
That's
room
why
there.
I think it's important for other brands who aren't, of this stature. Like, just because one idea didn't work out, it doesn't mean that the channel's broken. It doesn't mean that your team is broken. There's all kinds of variables that you kind of just have to keep iterating. And again, there's always a hint of luck in any advertising. Yeah, it's going to actually catch on with the audience that you intend for it to catch on, or a different audience.
Yeah, because newsflash, they killed Batman too, but nobody heard about that.
No, it didn't.
I just heard about it.
Yeah, it didn't. They didn't kill him. He was severely wounded.
Well, no, they've killed him twice. So, see, the first time was Darkseid killed him, and then the second time the Joker did in a cave. It was Scott Snyder, his run. That's when they started defining the Joker. I don't know why we're talking about this on the. Well,
did
I
you
know
just
why.
get showed up?
Yes, I did.
Shown up.
I've never been a huge Batman.
Yeah, I'm the DC guy. He's the Marvel guy, and that's why. Like he'll school me on like Thanos and all that stuff. I ain't got a clue about like who Squirrel Girl is or anything.
I'm not touching it. I'm not touching that. Leaving it alone. But I mean, it's interesting. I mean, in order to, this kind of crosses into the whole, what you would call like rapid response advertising, where you turn something around quickly, and the whole idea atmosphere, good ideas. Where do good ideas come from? What makes both of those things work is that there's always communication, and there's always ideas being processed. It's got to be happening constantly. It's not something you can turn a switch on and off.
Right.
You've got to be monitoring the environment.
Culture.
Right. You've got to monitor the environment you exist in, but you also have to foster a creative process where people are always thinking and always coming up with something new, where where you're encouraging creative thought. Now, I mean, I've in the advertising business, I've never been a believer in creativity for creativity's sake. You're just creating smoke and not much fire. But developing an attitude among your peers and your colleagues and your marketing department, whatever it is, always be thinking about stuff and write. Keep notes. Keep we used to call them morgue back in the day. You looking through magazines and things like that. If you saw a really nice ad that really struck your fancy, like, this is strong, not just because you liked it, but there were things about it that you understood what made it good. You tore it off and you put it in a morgue.
Yeah.
Because you run into a circumstance with customers and with clients where they need something. There's a message that needs to be told, and there's a really good way to tell it. And let's face it, all the good creative we come up with is inspired by something else. Nothing is made up from whole cloth. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's no new original ideas.
Exactly,
anymore. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, the whole emoji thing. Well, if the emojis didn't exist, they couldn't have had that idea. It was kind of, the parts were prefabricated.
Yeah, Forrest Gump was running, and it was on a T-shirt, and then he gave it to the guy, and the guy's like, that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop there because I got this look from John. He's like, just don't.
I'm trying to think back of the scene.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
So
yeah. I was like, I was going to go through I was going to do an impersonation, but you had that look on your face.
You can do it.
No. Go on, Mitch.
No, that's okay. Just to wrap up the thought, it's just, if you have good ideas, keep them handy. If you've got good, and you may not have it's like, I've got this tool, but I don't have a use for it right now. That's okay. You will.
Yeah, I think people call them swipe files now, not morgues.
Yeah,
right.
I have, I keep stuff. I keep screenshots of a good email that I see, a Black Friday email, because I know I'm going to need it in a year.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not, don't go around copying other people's creative. Don't steal people's ideas. There's a fine line between being influenced in a creative direction by somebody else's work and just basically stealing it.
With that, if you want to check out NerdBrand, how we build brands, see the faces of the team, meet us, you can go to nerdbrandagency.com. Or maybe just skip over Mitch's face. I don't know. It's up to you.
Don't want to scare the kids.
Yeah, scare the kids. John, tell the people where they can find us on social.
Anywhere. Just look for us. I'm just kidding. We're at NerdBrand Agency pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. So consistency. And then, you want to check out this podcast, you can go to, anywhere as well. You can go to Apple, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. Yep. So Sounder FM. Yep. All of those places. And you can find it primarily on nerdbrandagency.com/podcast.
Did we mention YouTube?
Yes, this is on YouTube. So if you're watching this, please click the bell, subscribe. And apparently there's a thing going on where they got rid of the dislike button. But I don't know.
You can't not like us.
But I'm going to say officially, I still have the dislike button. So I kind of feel like I'm being trolled or pranked by the internet.
The public dislike count. They're not showing the number publicly. You can still see it on the back end.
Oh.
As the creator or whatever.
Oh.
But they're not showing the public dislike counts anymore for, I don't know.
That's so inauthentic.
And on that note, that's going to conclude this episode of the NerdBrand Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, keep your NerdBrand strong.